enough that he fills his abstract phrases about change with some real content. Noam Chomsky said, talking about Senator McCain and Senator Obama, to say it doesn't make any difference who wins is to express your contempt for the general population, because it does make a difference. A lot of what they say is correct. The two parties are effectively factions of one party, the business party, but the factions are somewhat different, and over time the differences show up in benefits, working conditions, wages, things that really matter to people. So let's start with you, Mr. Nader. 90 seconds if you could respond to these statements by Mr. Chomsky and Mr. Zinn.
Well, first of all, we know that Mr. Chomsky and Mr. Zinn agree far more with the Nader Gonzalez campaign, but they are demonstrating a tactical vote. The tactical vote for the least worst, namely Obama, should involve a moral imperative to make demands on Obama. So if he wins with a specific mandates, specific series of mandates. The problem with the liberal and progressive intelligentsia is that they don't make their vote hard to get, and they allow the least worst to ignore them and go more to the corporate side and try to get a little slice of the right-wing vote, which is exactly what Dukakis, Mondale, Gore, and Clinton and Kerry did. And it wasn't exactly a winning strategy, except for Clinton with the Perot situation. So I think, one, there needs to be a demands made on Obama, and people living in slam dunk states that are slam dunk McCain and Obama can cast a vote for their conscience, because that doesn't affect the least worst outcome. And finally, it's not who wins, it's how they win. Are they going to win without worrying about progressive forces, because progressive forces have told them they can be taken for granted because the McCain alternative is too horrible to contemplate.
Mr. Baldwin.
Thank you very much, Chris. I think this whole mantra of the wasted vote or the lesser two evils is what has brought us to this place. I'll tell you what a wasted vote is. A wasted vote is to vote for someone that you know in your heart will not be faithful to the principles and the values that you believe in, that you know will betray the things that are core to that which is central to our nation's success, and yet to ignore those central core issues and to vote for someone because they may happen to fit into that lesser of two evils category. A wasted vote in 2008 for my conservative friends out there that are watching tonight, I would counter by saying that a wasted vote in 2008 is a vote for John McCain, because I don't believe that John McCain can anymore win this election than Bob Dole could win the election that he fought with Bill Clinton. I really believe that if Christians and evangelicals and conservatives in 2008, if they want to waste a vote, they'll vote for John McCain. I believe that they want to for someone that they know in their heart will be faithful to the principles and the values that they profess to believe. I believe that they must cast a vote for Chuck Baldwin and the Constitution Party in 2008. I just believe that this whole wasted vote mentality is something that is not consistent with the principles of our founding fathers.
Thank you.
And our American Republic.
Thank you. We will now have a 5-minute discussion, and you're certainly free to ask questions of each other. I think I would begin by asking whether it's realistic, given the climate of our country, to even mount a third-party challenge, given the innumerable obstacles placed in front of candidates by the two-party system. Do you want to begin, Mr. Nader?
Oh, of course it is. I mean, look at the Liberty Party in 1840, anti-slavery. Aren't we glad some voters spun off from the Whigs and the Democrats and didn't go least worst and voted for the Liberty Party? The same for Women's Suffrage Party. The same for the Labor and Farmer parties, the late 19th and early 20th century. All these small parties never won a national election, but they put on the public table the social justice movements first, before the two major parties decided to pick them up. And aren't we glad that that occurred? You see, if nature doesn't allow seeds to sprout, it can't regenerate itself. If business doesn't allow entrepreneurs to have a chance, it can't regenerate itself. But somehow we got a shared monopoly by the Republican Democratic parties, who, for a variety of state ballot access obstacles, can squeeze out or drain third-party or independent candidates. They keep them off the debates because they control the debate commission. It's a private company, the two major parties. And when that happens, you don't get polled, and if you don't get polled, you don't get any time on the national TV. So it's a catch-22 vicious circle that is a suppression of the First Amendment rights of candidates that are not two-party, major party candidates to engage in the electoral arena.
All right, let's get Mr. Baldwin.
Well, the Republican Party was a minor party in 1860, and of course, we don't hear too much from the Whigs these days.
1860.
What did I say?
1960.
1860. That's right. So obviously, we can see that parties evolve through time. The fact of the matter is that the American people today, I believe, recognize that the two major parties and the two-party system in general is broken. A recent Fox News survey suggested that nearly 50% of the American people would consider voting for a third-party candidate in 2008. I was in Michigan not too many weeks ago, and I understand that the same survey was taken there. And in that state that has become so depressed because of NAFTA and some of these other so-called free trade deals that have destroyed our jobs and our manufacturing in those industrial states, that same survey was taken, and there, from my understanding, 80% of the residents of Michigan said they'd be willing to consider voting for a third-party candidate in 2008. I think the mood of the people is ready for a third party. It's interesting to me, too, that over in Iraq, the last report I heard, our government was happily sponsoring as many as 20 or more political parties to get involved in the new political process in Iraq. And so we're doing that there, but then you come back to the United States of America, and I'm sorry, if you're not a Republican or Democrat, then you don't have a right to compete.
But what about the argument that it's better to be practical, it's better to be a realist, it's better to pick the lesser of two evils? I mean, in your case, certainly the Republican Party, despite John McCain's past opposition to the pro-life movement, he claims to support it now. I mean, how would you respond to the lesser of two evils, Mr. Nader? Maybe you want to begin.
Well, if you cast a least worst vote without pulling the least worst candidate, John Kerry, say, or Barack Obama, in the direction of the 20 or so political constituencies, the Democratic Party, labor, women's rights, minorities, anti-poverty, environment, consumer, then you don't exert any pull at all, and the corporate interests are pulling on Obama and McCain 24/7. So it's a completely losing process, and that's why every 4 years both parties get worse. They get more corporate. Barack Obama is the first Democratic nominee to raise more money from corporate interests, Wall Street interests, and corporate attorneys than the Republican nominee, in this case John McCain. Why are these corporate interests investing in Barack Obama?
Let's let Mr. Baldwin take the last minute to answer that.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah. The lesser of two evils, as I tried to mention a minute ago, is I think one of the reasons why we're in the mess that we're in. That whole mantra. Let me just speak to the evangelicals for a minute. If they were a first-century Christian and they had the opportunity to vote for Nero or Caligula, which one would they vote for? Would it be Nero because he would slaughter a few less people than Caligula? I mean, where do we go with this? The fact of the matter is, I would contend that the way that we have been treating these Republican candidates lately, the Republican administrations are actually more harmful than many of the Democrat administrations. I dare say that John Kerry would not have been able to get away with many of the things that George Bush was able to get away with, simply because he was a Republican and the conservatives and evangelicals were asleep at the wheel, therefore. So I would contend that this idea that one is lesser than the other isn't true. If you don't have somebody with a commitment to principle, a commitment to the Constitution, it really doesn't matter whether they're Republican or Democrat. The carnage that results is felt throughout the country.
Okay, let's move on.